Maya Caldwell believed in knowing every inch of the empire she built. As the CEO and founder of Sterling First Bank, she had spent years ensuring that her institution operated on fairness, integrity, and accessibility. She hadn't inherited this empire. She had built it from scratch. From the moment she secured her first investor to when she cut the ribbon on her first branch, Maya had poured her soul into this bank. It wasn't just about numbers or financial growth. It was about trust, which is why she was here today, standing at the entrance of the Sterling First, Madison Avenue branch, dressed in nothing but a crisp white blouse, navy slacks, and black loafers. No assistant, no security, no entourage, just her. To everyone in the lobby, she was just another customer. And that was exactly what she wanted. Over the past few months, murmurs had reached her ears. Whispers of biased service, selective treatment, and unexplained hurdles faced by certain customers at some branches. At first, she brushed it off as exaggerated complaints. But then, patterns emerged. A young black entrepreneur denied a business loan despite exceeding all qualifications. A single mother turned away from opening a savings account because she lacked a certain document, one that wasn't required of other customers. And now, Maya was hearing the same disturbing rumor. Customers of color were facing unexplained roadblocks at the teller counter. She needed to see for herself. As she entered the bank, the cool air conditioning met her skin, contrasting with the warm afternoon outside. She took in the high ceilings, the soft classical music playing in the background, the neatly dressed tellers, and the customers moving between lines and waiting areas. Everything looked normal. But was it? Maya made her way to the nearest teller, a young woman with sleek brown hair pulled into a ponytail, her name tag reading Lisa Mendez. She seemed polite enough, but Maya caught a brief flicker of hesitation in her eyes the moment she stepped forward. "Good afternoon," Maya greeted smoothly, placing her debit card and ID on the counter. "I'd like to make a withdrawal, $5,000. Lisa hesitated, just for a second. But Maya noticed. The young teller took the ID and debit card, glancing at them quickly before her eyes darted toward the manager's office. So quick, most people wouldn't have noticed. Maya did. A slow, sinking feeling settled in her stomach, but she kept her face calm. Lisa offered a professional but forced smile. "One moment, ma'am. I'll just need some additional verification before I can process this transaction." Maya's brows lifted slightly. "Additional verification? Why?" Lisa kept smiling, but the slight nervousness in her eyes betrayed her. "It's company policy for withdrawals over $5,000. Maya leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. "I'm the one who wrote the company policies, and I know for a fact that we don't have a rule like that." Lisa's face paled slightly. She swallowed hard, glancing at the computer screen as if searching for a way out. Maya folded her arms. "Let me ask you something, Lisa. Would you be asking for additional verification if I looked different?" Lisa's eyes widened. I don't know what you mean, ma'am." "Oh, I think you do," Maya said, voice even but firm. She wasn't angry. Not yet. She was waiting to see just how deep this problem ran. And then, just as she expected, Lisa glanced toward the manager's office again, this time a little longer, a little more desperate. Maya exhaled slowly, suppressing a smirk. "Here we go." "Go ahead," she said, tilting her chin slightly. "Call your manager. Let's see what they have to say." As Lisa hurried off to get help, Maya pulled out her phone, checking the time. She had a feeling this errand was about to take longer than expected. And by the time she walked out of this bank, someone's world was going to change. If you want to see what happens next, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Maya watched Lisa Mendez hurry toward the manager's office, her posture stiff, her pace quick but careful. It was the kind of walk someone had when they didn't want to make a scene but knew something wasn't right. Maya sighed, shaking her head slightly. She had hoped she was wrong, but deep down, she had expected this. She took a step back from the counter and let her eyes wander across the bank lobby. The place was pristine. Marble floors polished to a mirror shine, sleek glass partitions, a well-dressed security guard standing by the entrance, and the occasional hum of printers and keyboards filling the air. At a counter to her left, an older man in a tailored suit was speaking to another teller. "I need $10,000 in cash," he said. The teller, a young man with glasses, barely glanced at his ID before typing a few things into his computer. Less than a minute later, he was reaching for the bills. No extra questions, no hesitation. Maya's lips pressed together. She glanced at another counter, where a woman in a beige cardigan was withdrawing cash as well. The interaction was smooth, polite, routine. No excessive verification. No requests for additional proof of identity. Just normal banking. Maya had spent years building Sterling First into a customer-first institution, yet here she was, watching her own staff enforce unspoken double standards. She took a deep breath as Lisa returned, this time with a man in a tailored gray suit. His name tag read Jason Turner, Bank Manager. Jason walked with the easy confidence of a man who was used to being in charge. His smile was professional, but Maya had spent too many years in the corporate world to be fooled by appearances. There was something just a little too smug in the way he assessed her. "Good afternoon, ma'am," Jason said smoothly, folding his hands in front of him. "I understand you're trying to make a withdrawal?" Maya nodded. "Yes, $5,000. Your teller here seems to think I need additional verification." Jason's smile didn't falter. "For transactions above a certain amount, we sometimes require extra steps to ensure security." Maya raised an eyebrow. "And what's that amount?" Jason hesitated. Maya tilted her head. "Because I just watched 2 other customers withdraw more than I requested, and I didn't see them being asked for extra steps." Jason's expression flickered, but he recovered quickly. "We handle each transaction on a case-by-case basis. It's nothing personal, ma'am." Maya's fingers tapped against the counter as she studied him. "You're sure about that?" Jason's smile stiffened slightly. "I can't discuss other customers' transactions, ma'am." "That's fine," Maya said, nodding. "Then let's discuss mine. What do you need?" Jason glanced at Lisa, who shifted nervously beside him. Then he turned back to Maya. "A second form of ID would be helpful." Maya took a slow breath. "You already have my driver's license and debit card." "It's just a precaution," Jason said smoothly. Maya leaned forward slightly. "A precaution for whom?" Jason's jaw twitched slightly. She had him. This wasn't about policy. It wasn't about security. It was about bias, whether conscious or not. And now Jason knew that she knew. Maya held his gaze, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make him uncomfortable. She wanted him to feel that tension, to feel the weight of what he was doing. Then, calmly, she reached into her handbag. Jason's eyes flickered toward her hand, his posture tensing ever so slightly, like he was expecting trouble. Maya smirked. She pulled out her phone, unlocked the screen, and pressed record. Jason's entire demeanor shifted in an instant. "Ma'am, you can't record in here," he said quickly. "Actually, I can," Maya replied, "and I think the public would be very interested in how Sterling First treats some of its customers." A hush spread through the nearby area. A few customers turned to watch. Lisa looked like she wanted to disappear. Even the security guard near the entrance seemed to hesitate. Jason cleared his throat. "There's no need for that." "There's every need for it," Maya said, "because what's happening right now, it's happening to other people. People without a camera, people without a platform, people who don't have the luxury of fighting back. But today, you picked the wrong customer." Jason opened his mouth to respond, but Maya wasn't done. She lifted her phone slightly, making sure the camera caught his name tag. "Jason Turner, right? Bank manager?" Jason's lips parted, but no words came out. Maya tilted her head, right, her voice calm but sharp. "Would you like to explain why you're denying service to a longtime customer with proper identification?" Jason swallowed. The silence stretched, and then, just as Maya expected, he did the thing every guilty person did when backed into a corner. He called security. Maya almost laughed. The security guard hesitated, looking between Jason and Maya. He clearly wasn't sure what he was supposed to do. Maya, on the other hand, was completely sure of what she was about to do next. She reached into her bag one more time. This time, she pulled out a sleek black business card and placed it on the counter. She tapped it twice, her voice cool and firm. "Maya Caldwell, founder and CEO of Sterling First Bank." The air in the room shifted. Lisa, the teller who had originally denied her request, sucked in a sharp breath. The security guard who had started to approach suddenly hesitated, taking a step back. And Jason? Jason felt his carefully curated world crumbling beneath him. For a split second, he could almost hear his own heartbeat in his ears. This woman, this CEO, had walked into his branch, had been treated like an outsider, and now she had caught them in the act. Jason tried to recover. He straightened his tie, cleared his throat, and forced out a chuckle that sounded far too thin. "Miss Caldwell," he said quickly, I had no idea. If you had mentioned who you were earlier," Maya's eyebrows lifted slightly. "If I had mentioned who I was earlier, would you have treated me differently?" Jason's mouth opened, then shut. There was no right way to answer that. Maya watched him for a moment, then turned the camera slightly, making sure to capture the entire scene, the nervous teller, the still silent security guard, and Jason's face as realization sank in. "You called security on me," she said, her voice calm but unmistakably sharp, "for trying to withdraw my own money. Do you do that often? Or just when someone like me is standing at your counter?" Jason felt the sweat gathering at the back of his neck. He needed to get ahead of this before it spiraled even further. "Miss Caldwell," he tried again, "I assure you, this was simply a misunderstanding. I would never." "You would never what?" Maya asked. "You would never discriminate? You would never assume someone didn't belong? Because that's exactly what happened here." The silence in the bank was thick enough to suffocate. Jason Turner stood behind the counter, his face pale, his mind racing. Maya Caldwell, the CEO of the very institution he worked for, had just exposed him in the most public way possible. And now, there was no undoing it. The other customers had stopped pretending not to watch. Some of them had pulled out their own phones, whispering to each other. A few employees near the back had frozen, their eyes darting between Jason and Maya, as if waiting for something even bigger to happen. Lisa Mendez, the teller who had initially denied Maya's withdrawal, was visibly shaken. Her hands trembled slightly as she rushed to count the cash, her fingers fumbling over the crisp bills. Maya, on the other hand, hadn't lost an ounce of composure. She stood tall, her hands resting calmly on the counter, as if she had all the time in the world. And in many ways, she did. Jason, however, was running out of it. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to breathe. His mind screamed for a way to fix this, to somehow undo the past 10 minutes, to go back to when this was just another routine interaction. But there was no way back. Not now. Not after she had called him out in front of an entire bank lobby. Not after she had put it on camera. And definitely not after she had revealed exactly who she was. Jason licked his lips, forcing a tight, professional smile. "Miss Caldwell, I just want to apologize again for this misunderstanding. It was never my intention to." Maya held up a hand, silencing him. Jason shut up immediately. "This isn't about apologies," she said. Lisa finished counting the money and slid it across the counter. "Here you go, ma'am," she said, her voice almost a whisper. Maya picked up the bills, tucking them neatly into her purse. Then she slowly turned back to Jason. "You know what the worst part of all this is?" she asked. Jason swallowed. "Ma'am?" Maya leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice, not in secrecy, but in deliberate emphasis. "You called security on me," she said, without a second thought, without knowing who I was, and without even considering that I had done absolutely nothing wrong. Jason's stomach tightened. She didn't raise her voice, but her words hit like a hammer. "You assumed I was a problem," she continued, "and that assumption, it wasn't random. It wasn't a coincidence. It was bias." Jason felt the word like a slap. His mouth opened, but before he could speak, Maya continued. "And the most frustrating part," she said, "you still think this is just about me." Jason frowned slightly, caught off guard. "I don't understand." Maya exhaled through her nose. "I can handle myself, Jason. I have power. I have resources. I have a platform." Her eyes sharpened. "But what about the people who don't?" Jason felt his stomach drop. The single mother who comes in with her children, trying to open an account, but is told she's missing documents that other customers aren't asked for? Silence. The young entrepreneur who meets every requirement for a loan, but is somehow always not quite qualified? Jason's pulse throbbed in his ears. The elderly black man who has been banking here for 20 years, but suddenly needs extra verification for a withdrawal? Jason looked away, because he knew it was true. Maya let the silence stretch between them before speaking again. "You don't just have a bias problem, Jason," she said. "You have a culture problem." Jason's jaw tightened. "And that problem?" Maya continued. "It ends today." Lisa let out a tiny breath, almost like she had been holding it this entire time. Jason forced another tight smile, trying to salvage whatever dignity he had left. "Of course, Miss Caldwell," he said. "I completely understand. We'll take immediate steps to address this." Maya cut him off with a single sharp nod. "You're right," she said. "You will. Because by tomorrow morning, every single Sterling First Bank employee, from tellers to branch managers, will be receiving a company-wide notice." "Jason, a notice?" Maya smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Mandatory bias and anti-discrimination training," she said. "Effective immediately. Any employee who refuses to comply, terminated." Jason's breath caught. "That includes you," she added. His stomach plummeted. Maya slung her purse over her shoulder. "Corporate will be calling you first thing in the morning," she said. "I suggest you have answers ready." Jason nodded quickly. "Understood." Maya took one last look around the bank lobby. Then she turned toward the exit. Jason exhaled sharply, feeling the weight of the entire moment crush down on him. He wasn't sure what his future at Sterling First looked like anymore. But one thing was certain: the bank was never going to be the same again. The next morning, an urgent memo was sent out across every branch of Sterling First Bank. Mandatory notice. Effective immediately. All employees are required to attend anti-bias training and policy review sessions. Failure to comply will result in disciplinary action, including termination. This policy change comes directly from corporate leadership. The message was clear. Maya Caldwell had walked into one of her own branches as just another customer. She had walked out as a force of change. And Jason Turner? By the end of the week, he had quietly resigned. Because when a bank forgets its own boss, there are consequences. Maya Caldwell didn't waste time. The moment she stepped out of Sterling First, Madison Avenue branch, she pulled out her phone and made the first of many calls. "Clara," she said as soon as her assistant answered. "We have a problem." Clara Martin had worked with Maya for years, long enough to recognize the dangerous calm in her voice. "Tell me what happened." Maya strode down the sidewalk, the city bustling around her, but her mind was locked onto one goal: fixing what she had just witnessed. "I just walked into one of my own branches," she said, "and they treated me like I didn't belong, like I was a fraud, like I needed extra proof just to access my own money." Clara inhaled sharply. "You're kidding." "I wish I was," Maya said. "And that's just what happened to me, which means it's happening to our customers, the people who trust us with their money, the people who built this bank right alongside me." There was a pause. Then Clara said, "Tell me what you need." Maya didn't hesitate. "First, I want an emergency meeting with senior leadership. Everyone, today. Done. Second, I want a policy audit on every branch. I need to know if this is an isolated issue or if we have a systemic problem. Understood. I'll get a team on it now. Third," Maya continued, her voice sharper now, "I want a company-wide email sent by noon. Mandatory anti-bias training starts this week. No exceptions." Clara was silent for a beat. Then she said, "Consider it handled." Maya exhaled slowly. "Good, because I'm not letting this slide, Clara. Not now, not ever." She ended the call and kept walking, because change wasn't just coming, it was already happening. The internal fallout: by noon, the email was sent. Urgent notice: policy change at Sterling First Bank. Effective immediately, all Sterling First Bank employees are required to attend mandatory bias and discrimination training. This includes tellers, managers, and corporate staff. Failure to comply will result in immediate termination. Additionally, all branch-level policies regarding customer verification will be reviewed for fairness, consistency, and transparency. The response was immediate. Some employees welcomed the change, knowing firsthand that customers had been treated unfairly for years. Others, like Jason Turner, saw the writing on the wall and resigned quietly before they could be pushed out. And the rest, the ones who had grown comfortable with discrimination hidden under the guise of policy, they didn't last long. Within 1 month, 20 employees had been fired for failing to meet the new standards. Within 3 months, the bank's internal structure had been transformed. And within 6 months, Maya was standing on a stage, speaking to an audience of thousands at a financial industry conference. Maya's message to the world. The stage lights were bright, The room filled with powerful executives, policymakers, and bank owners from around the country. But Maya wasn't nervous. She stood tall, her hands resting lightly on the podium, and then she spoke. "I built Sterling First Bank because I wanted to create a different kind of financial institution," she said. "A place where every customer, no matter their race, gender, or background, felt valued. Where fairness wasn't just a slogan, it was a reality." She let her words settle before continuing. "But a few months ago, I walked into one of my own branches, and what I saw shook me to my core." The room was silent now, listening. I was treated like I didn't belong. I was denied service for no reason beyond someone's unconscious bias. And I realized something. She looked directly at the crowd. If it could happen to me, the CEO, then it was happening to people every single day. A murmur rippled through the audience. "So we made changes," Maya said. "We fired the people who refused to change. We retrained the ones who wanted to do better. We reviewed our policies from the ground up." Her voice hardened. "And now, our customers don't have to prove their worth before accessing their own money." A wave of applause swept through the room. Maya let it pass before delivering her final words. "I challenge every bank in this room to ask yourselves, are you truly serving your customers, or just the ones who look like you?" Another round of applause, louder this time. Maya stepped back from the podium, her heart steady. She had forced a reckoning in her own institution. And now, she was making sure the entire industry felt it too. 1 year later, Sterling First Bank was thriving. Customer trust had skyrocketed. New branches had opened, built on policies of transparency and fairness. Even competitors had started adopting similar changes, fearing public scrutiny. Maya sat in her office, looking out over the city skyline, a small smile on her face. One moment of discrimination had almost cost her faith in her own institution. Instead, it became the catalyst for a revolution. And now, Sterling First Bank would never be the same. And neither would the industry, because change doesn't just happen, it's demanded. And Maya had made sure the world listened. If this story inspired you, make sure to subscribe so you never miss another one. Together, we can keep pushing for change.